Black woman lost her job for saving a millionaire's baby, and a Ferrari showed up at her door. The scream cut through the morning air like a blade. Camilla didn't even think. His feet moved before his brain fully processed the scene. The stroller rolling straight onto the busy street, the mother distracted by her cell phone meters away, the delivery truck speeding around the corner. 3 seconds. That's all he had. He dropped the coffee tray he was carrying, expensive china cups shattering on the hotel's marble floor, and took off. His fingers gripped the handle of the cart a thousandths before the wheels touched the asphalt. The truck honked furiously past, so close that she felt the wind move her hair. The baby cried. Camilla took a breath. My God, my God. Benjamin. The blonde woman finally dropped the phone and ran over, snatching the cart from Camilla's hands as if she were a threat. What were you doing with my son? Camilla, 34 years old, had just saved a life. In 10 minutes he would lose his job of 7 years. The manager of the Grand Riverside Hotel appeared before she could explain anything. Mr. Morrison, always impeccable in his gray suit, assessed the scene with cold eyes. Shards of china scattered about, coffee staining the Persian rug, guests forming a curious circle. Miss Santos, my office. Now, the woman in the cart, Vanessa Whitmore I would later discover, didn't even look back as she pushed Benjamin back into the hotel. No thanks, no recognition, as if Camilla were invisible. 7 years, Morrison, Camilla said as the office door closed. You've known me for 7 years, and in 7 years you've never broken more than $1,000 worth of hotel china. He already had the papers prepared on the table. Too many papers for something decided in 10 minutes. Inappropriate behavior, abandoning the workplace, serious material damage. I saved a child's life. You caused a scene that disturbed our premium guests. Morrison pushed a pen toward her. The hotel has protocols. You violated them. Camilla looked at the resignation papers. His signature was the only thing missing. Everything had already been decided, processed, finalized, as if the 7 years of double shifts, worked holidays, and impeccable evaluations simply disappeared because she had the audacity to stop a child from dying. Ms. Whitmore is the wife of one of our largest investors, Morrison continued, his tone low and matter-of-fact. She was uncomfortable with the situation. Uncomfortable. That was the word they chose to describe the fact that a black employee touched her son. Camilla signed. Her hands weren't shaking. She wouldn't give Morrison that satisfaction, but something inside her broke with a sound only she could hear. You have 2 hours to clean out your locker, he said, already looking at the computer screen. Case closed. Problem solved. Dismissed employee. She walked down the hotel hallway for the last time, carrying a box of her belongings, a spare pair of shoes, a photo from her sister's graduation, the badge she had worn for 7 years. He passed through the reception where he worked 1,000 shifts, through the lounge where he served thousands of coffees, through the revolving door that he passed through on countless early mornings. Nobody looked at her. Nobody said anything. On the bus home, Camilla opened her cell phone and saw 17 messages from her younger sister, a law student. I saw it all on Twitter. Someone filmed it. Camilla, you are an angel. Attached was a shaky video showing exactly the moment she grabbed the stroller, the truck passing inches away, the baby crying in her arms. 3,000 shares, 5,000 comments. Heroine saves baby from fatal accident. Employee risks life to protect child. Courage in action. And none of them mattered because Camilla was still unemployed. But as the bus crossed the city towards her small apartment, Camilla looked out the window with an expression that anyone who knew her well would recognize. It wasn't despair. It wasn't resignation. It was the calculating look of someone who had just understood exactly what, and who, he was fighting against. What no one at the Grand Riverside Hotel could imagine was that that video was being watched by someone very specific, someone who recognized the navy blue cart, someone who knew that baby very well, and someone who was about to ask questions the hotel would rather never answer. If this story of injustice and courage touched something in you, subscribe to the channel, because what happened after this viral video would not only transform Camilla's life, but expose a truth about the Grand Riverside Hotel that they had kept hidden for years. The notification arrived 3 days after the dismissal. Labor process filed against Vose, moral and material damage. Camilla read the official document twice, trying to process the complete reversal of reality. Vanessa Whitmore was suing her for causing emotional trauma by aggressively and irresponsibly handling her son in public. $5,000 in moral damages, another $3,000 for the therapeutic costs necessary for her to overcome Benjamin's temporary kidnapping. They're suing you for saving their son? Camilla's sister Julia looked at the document with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Having recently graduated from law school, she still had that idealistic energy of someone who believes that the system works. This is insane. It's literally insane. It's strategic. Camilla corrected, her voice surprisingly calm. They're making sure I don't sue them first, flipping the narrative, and it worked perfectly. In the following days, the Grand Riverside Hotel released an official statement describing Camilla as a troubled former employee with a history of inappropriate behavior. No mention of the baby, no mention of the truck, just vague insinuations about multiple protocol violations and repeated misconduct. The video that went viral disappeared. The account that posted it was suspended for violation of privacy. Shares led to broken links. Within 48 hours, visual evidence of his courage simply evaporated from the internet, as if it had never existed. How did they do it? Julia was typing frantically on her laptop. You can't just delete something that thousands of people have seen. You can when you have enough money. Camilla was sitting at the tiny kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of bills. Rent due in 2 weeks. Health insurance canceled. Electricity bill with red warning. 7 years of stability evaporated in 10 minutes of heroism. The phone rang. Unknown number. Miss Saints? This is Marcus Chen from the law firm Miller & Associates. I represent Mrs. Whitmore in the case against you. The voice was young, efficient, indifferent. I'm calling to offer a settlement. My client is willing to drop the lawsuit if you sign a statement admitting inappropriate behavior and agreeing never to publicly discuss the events of September 15th. What if I refuse? Then my client will continue with the complete process. She has unlimited resources for litigation, Ms. Saints. I imagine you're unemployed at the moment. A calculated pause. I should also mention that several employment agencies in the area have been informed about your career issues. It would be a shame if this affected your future opportunities. Camilla hung up. They're blocking you, Julia concluded. Vanessa Whitmore is using her contacts to make sure you don't get work anywhere. 2 days later, Camilla had confirmation. 17 resumes sent. 17 polite responses saying that, unfortunately, the position has been filled, or that your profile did not align with the company's needs at this time. The manager of a cafe where she applied for a job was more honest. Look, you look great on paper, but I got a call from Grand Riverside. They made it clear that hiring you would be complicated for our business. She lowered her voice, genuinely embarrassed. I'm sorry, I have bills to pay too. Blacklist. Camilla was on the blacklist. In the 3rd week of unemployment, the water in the apartment was turned off. By Wednesday, she was eating instant noodles twice a day and calculating whether she could skip paying for her cell phone to pay for electricity. That's when the second video appeared. Julia called her at 2 in the morning, her voice high-pitched with excitement. Camilla, wake up, you need to see this now. Someone had backed up the original video. And it wasn't just anyone. It was an account with 40,000 followers focused on exposing corporate injustices. The video was back, this time with added context. An investigation showing that Camilla had been fired, that she was being sued, that Grand Riverside was actively destroying her life. Heroine who saved baby is being chased through luxury hotel, read the caption. Black employee fired and blacklisted for preventing the death of a white child. Share this. 200,000 views in the first hour, 500,000 until dawn. Comments flooded the screen. This is absolutely disgusting. Does anyone know how we can help this woman? Grand Riverside Hotel should be ashamed. Blatant racism disguised as protocol. But Camilla wasn't reading comments. He was looking at a private message that had arrived along with the burst of attention. Mrs. Santos, my name is David Whitmore. I am Vanessa's husband and Benjamin's father. We need to talk urgently. Please call me at this number. It's about the day of the accident, and about things my wife doesn't know that I know. Julia read over her shoulder. It's a trap, it has to be. Maybe. Camilla saved the number, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. Or maybe not all Whitmores are the same. What she didn't tell her sister was that she was already investigating on her own. 3 weeks of forced unemployment gave him time to scroll through online forums of former Grand Riverside employees, time to discover that his firing wasn't an isolated incident, time to find patterns. 6 black employees fired in the last year, all for protocol violations, all after incidents involving VIP guests. No successful employment lawsuits because the hotel had expensive lawyers and employees were afraid of retaliation. But now there was something the hotel didn't have before, public attention. And public attention meant scrutiny. And scrutiny meant other people would start asking uncomfortable questions. The phone rang again. Different number this time. Miss Saints? This is Patricia Foster from KNTV News. We would like to interview you about your experience at the Grand Riverside Hotel. We are investigating possible pattern of discrimination and... Camilla hung up again. Not yet. It wasn't the right time. Because while everyone saw a desperate woman with no options, Camilla was calmly cataloging every mistake her oppressors made, every threat documented, every attempt to silence her recorded, every illegal action preserved. The folder on their laptop grew daily. screenshots, call recordings, perfectly legal in the state where they lived, documents from the obviously fraudulent lawsuit, copies of the hotel's defamatory statement. "You're planning something," Julia observed, studying her sister's expression. "I'm getting ready," Camilla corrected. "There is a difference." The third video appeared a week later. This time, it was security footage from inside the Grand Riverside. Someone inside was leaking information. It showed Camilla being escorted out of the hotel by security guards while other employees watched in silence, some with tears in their eyes. And it showed something else. Vanessa Whitmore in the lobby, laughing on the phone, gesturing casually as a woman who saved her son was publicly humiliated. The video ended with her saying something to Morrison, the manager, with subtitles. At least now she knows her place. The internet exploded. Camilla received 40 messages that night, offers from pro bono lawyers, journalists wanting interviews, former hotel employees wanting to testify, and a message from David Whitmore, more insistent this time. "Please, Mrs. Santos, there are things about my wife and that day that you need to know. Things that change everything. Give me a chance to explain." Julia looked at the screen with wide eyes. "This is getting big, Camilla. Very big." "I know." Camilla saved each message, categorized each offer, documented each contact. "And the bigger it gets, the more careful I need to be." Because she understood something that Vanessa Whitmore, Morrison, and everyone at the Grand Riverside Hotel couldn't understand. Desperate people are dangerous, but patient people are lethal. And Camilla Santos, after 7 years of observing how the powerful operated, after 3 weeks of being systematically destroyed, after a lifetime of learning to survive in a world that wasn't made for her, was not desperate. It was strategic. And he had learned from watching his oppressors for so long that true revenge is never impulsive. It is built brick by brick, test by test, enemy error by enemy error. The question was not whether Camilla would fight back. That was when, and how devastating the fall would be for those who underestimated a woman who had the audacity to save a life and the patience to wait for the perfect moment to destroy those who tried to destroy her for it. Camilla didn't answer David Whitmore's call, not immediately. Instead, he spent 3 days doing something he had learned from watching the rich at the Grand Riverside Hotel. Meticulous research, every public profile of David on social media, each article mentioning your name, every business record accessible. Julia, with her newly acquired law student skills, helped compile information that began to paint a very interesting picture. David Whitmore wasn't just Vanessa's rich husband. He was the heir to a technology fortune, yes, but he was also known for something specific. Educational philanthropy focused on underserved communities. There were photos of him at library openings, youth mentoring programs, scholarships. "That doesn't make sense," Julia muttered, comparing photos. "The guy funds programs against racial inequality, but is married to someone who sued you for saving his son?" "It makes perfect sense," Camilla replied broadly. "I take a specific photo. Look at his body language in this charity gala photo. Look where Vanessa is looking. They're not together, they're just at the same event. Facade wedding." It had all the signs. When he finally called back, David answered on the first ring. "Thanks for calling back." His voice was tense, urgent. "I know you have no reason to trust me, but you need to know that I didn't authorize the lawsuit against you. I didn't know anything until I saw the second video. Your wife sued someone without you knowing. My wife does a lot of things without me knowing." A heavy pause. "Including being out of the house for 3 hours on the day of the accident, leaving our 8-month-old son with a new babysitter who she barely interviewed." Camilla sat up straighter. "Continue." "The nanny had a family emergency and had to run out. Vanessa was at the beauty salon and didn't answer the phone. The girl, desperate, put Benjamin in the stroller and left him in the hotel lobby for literally 2 minutes, while she tried to find someone from the team. When she came back, you had already saved my son, and Vanessa was turning you into the villain." "Por que você está me contando isso?" "Because my son is alive because of you. Because you lost your job and are being sued for doing something heroic. And because," he hesitated, "because the more I investigate my own hotel, the more I find things that make me sick." "Your hotel? My family owns 40% of Grand Riverside. I was never involved in the operational management. I always trusted Morrison and the board. Bad mistake, as I'm discovering." Camilla and Julia looked at each other. That changed everything. "What exactly did you discover?" "Patterns. 6 employees of color fired in the last year, all after incidents with VIP guests. Dozens of discrimination complaints filed without adequate investigation. Payments and confidential settlements that never came to my attention." His voice shook with contained anger. "My hotel has a systematic problem, and Morrison was deliberately keeping me in the dark. Why would you care? No offense, but people like you usually don't care about standards when they're making a profit." "People like me," he repeated without defensiveness. Fair enough. But my mother was a Korean immigrant who cleaned houses for 15 years before my father met her. I grew up hearing stories about how she was treated, about doors being closed just because of her last name before she got married. She made sure I never forgot where we came from. A deep breath. And now I find out that a business with my name is perpetuating exactly the kind of discrimination that destroyed my mother. Silence on the line as Camilla processed. I need your help, David continued. You know the hotel inside out. You know the staff, the systems, where the bodies are buried. I'm gathering evidence to clear the house completely, but I need someone who understands how things really worked on an operational level. In exchange for, I withdraw the suit immediately. I pay you substantial compensation for the damage to your reputation and lost income. I guarantee that you will never be blacklisted again. In fact, I will make a point of personally recommending you to any employer. And, he paused significantly, when I finish cleaning up Grand Riverside, there will be leadership positions available for people who truly understand what it means to treat employees with dignity. Camilla looked at the folder on the laptop, growing daily with her own investigation. I already have evidence. Quite a bit of evidence, actually. So we work together. You have the inside perspective. I have access to corporate files that Morrison thought were safe. His voice became more intense. We will expose everything, publicly, completely, in a way that ensures this never happens again. 2 weeks later, Camilla was sitting in the city's most expensive law firm, not as a defendant but as a client. The lawyer David hired, Helena Rodriguez, was known for destroying corporations in cases of discrimination. 50-something impeccable gray hair, and a reputation that made CEOs tremble. Your case is solid, Helena said, spreading documents out on the conference table. But their case? She smiled, and it wasn't a gentle smile. It is a masterpiece of legal incompetence and corporate arrogance. In the following days, the siege closed. David used his authority as major shareholder to demand a full HR audit. Camilla provided names of former employees willing to testify. Helena subpoenaed documents that Morrison had tried to hide. Julia, working as a volunteer legal assistant, cross-referenced and found patterns that turned isolated incidents into documented systematic discrimination. The leaked security video? It had been David who ensured that it reached the right hands. The social media account exposing corporate injustices? Financed by him through third parties. You're destroying your own business, Camilla observed during one of their strategy meetings. I'm saving it, David corrected. A business built on discrimination and injustice is not worth saving. Better to burn the rot and rebuild with a solid foundation. Vanessa still didn't know anything. David kept everything secret, allowing her to continue her life of charity lunches and spa days, with no idea of the storm brewing. Morrison also remained confident, believing that his position was secure, that the incident with Camilla was water under the bridge. They underestimated two critical things: the determination of a woman who had everything taken away unfairly, and the quiet anger of a man who discovered his family legacy was tainted by institutionalized prejudice. KNTV's investigative report was being prepared. 3 journalists worked full-time, receiving unprecedented access to the documents David strategically released. Former employees finally felt safe to speak out, protected by lawyers, and the promise that their stories mattered. It's going to be big, the executive producer told Camilla during a pre-interview. We're talking about national exposure. 60 Minutes has already called wanting to license part of the report. Camilla just nodded, maintaining the same calculated calm she had displayed since the beginning. Because while everyone around her was preparing media blitzes and lawsuits, she understood something fundamental. True revenge wasn't about impulsive destruction. It was about strategic reconstruction. And when the Grand Riverside Hotel finally fell, and it would, she'd make sure of it. It wouldn't just be ruin and ashes. It would be transformation. It would be justice not just for her, but for every person Morrison and Vanessa Whitmore trampled on their path. We're ready, Helena announced 2 weeks later, closing the last folder of evidence. We have documentation of systematic discrimination, recordings of Morrison making graphic racist comments, emails of Vanessa coordinating the blacklist against you, financial records of hidden confidential payments. It's indefensible. David looked at Camilla. Last chance to back down. When we do, it's going to be nuclear. Your life is going to be turned upside down again. But this time, with the entire country's searchlights watching, Camilla thought about the last few months. In spilled coffee, in the humiliating dismissal, in the weeks eating instant noodles, in the 17 job rejections, in the fraudulent process, at the contempt in Vanessa Whitmore's eyes when she looked at her like she was nothing. I'm ready, she said. We're going to show them exactly what happens when they underestimate someone who had the audacity to do the right thing. Helena smiled, unlocking her laptop. So let's start with the press conference. Tomorrow, 10 in the morning in the main hall of the office. I invited all the main vehicles, plus bloggers specializing in social justice and labor rights. She paused dramatically. Oh, and I sent a special invitation to the Grand Riverside Hotel. It would be a shame if Morrison and Vanessa missed the moment when their entire world falls apart, wouldn't it? Julia, who had remained quiet in the corner of the room, finally spoke. Is this going to work? Are they really going to pay for what they did? Camilla looked out the window of the skyscraper, seeing the city spread out below. He had been to the Heights before, serving coffee for people who had never learned his name. Now it was there again, but this time as an equal, not as invisible. They're already paying, she replied. They just don't know yet, because the sweetest revenge was not the one that surprised the enemy. It was the one who let him watch, helpless, as everything they built on lies and prejudice crumbled brick by brick, mistake by mistake, arrogance by arrogance. And tomorrow, when the cameras turned on and the reporters started asking questions, Morrison and Vanessa Whitmore would finally learn a lesson that Camila had long mastered. Invisible people see everything. E quando decidem ser vistas, o mundo inteiro para observar. The press conference started at 10 in the morning with 23 vehicles present. Morrison arrived confidently, 2 lawyers at his side. Vanessa didn't even show up. She sent an assistant with a statement about unfounded accusations. Helena Rodriguez opened it with surgical precision. I represent Camila Santos in case of systematic racial discrimination against the Grand Riverside Hotel. Morrison smiled condescendingly. We've already reviewed. Mr. Morrison, Helena cut in. I suggest silence. The next few hours will be uncomfortable. Click. Morrison's internal email on screen. We need to be judicious. Premium customers expect a certain visual standard. From the TA 3 years ago, attached list of preferred characteristics, thinly disguised discrimination. Morrison paled. Next slide. WhatsApp. Find technical reasons to reverse these promotions. 5 black employees fired in the following months. Audio played. Vanessa at the spa. Did that woman touch Benjamin? Morrison already sorted it out. She'll learn her place. Absolute silence in the room. David Whitmore stood up from the front row. As a major shareholder, I want to hear how you turned my investment into systematic discrimination. Financial spreadsheet appeared. 470,000 in confidential agreements hidden from the board. Helena continued undeterred. Camila Santos. 7 exemplary years. Fired in 10 minutes for saving a life. Video appeared. Camila grabbing cart. Truck passing by millimetrically. After, inside footage showing Morrison with papers ready before Camila entered. Decision made before hearing it. 18 companies contacted later. Illegal blacklist documented. What about Vanessa's lawsuit? Journalist asked. Fraud. Nanny confirms that Vanessa was unreachable. She invented everything to cover up negligence. Vanessa's assistant ran out. Morrison's phone rang. It turned gray. We sued Hotel Morrison and Vanessa, $3 million initial. It destroys, Morrison stammered. No, David cut in. You almost destroyed my hotel. He looked at cameras. Morrison, fired. I take immediate control. Viro para Camila. I offer diversity manager board seat. I accept, Camila said. One condition. Which? Every silenced employee will be contacted. Silence is bought back. Stories heard and compensated. Publicly. David held out his hand. Done. 23 cameras captured the moment. Morrison staggered out. Lawyers trying to control damage. Vanessa called 7 times. Ignored. Evening News opened with a headline. Vanessa posted at 9. I'm sorry for the misunderstandings. Too late. Next morning, 3 sponsors suspended contracts. 2 counselors resigned. Morrison photographed with box of belongings. Camila and Julia at the cafe in the afternoon. You destroyed them. Exposed. Systemic justice. Messages arrived. Marcus, thank you for fighting. Brenda, I can finally sleep. Morrison lost his job, his reputation. Vanessa, facade of a philanthropist. Hotel, image built over decades. But while cameras went out and journalists finished stories, a red Ferrari crossed the city towards Camila's apartment. Not as material payment, but carrying something infinitely more valuable. The key to transformation that would change hundreds of invisible lives. Because as Morrison watched from his car parked across the street, hands shaking on the steering wheel, Vanessa had stopped taking his calls, and his lawyers informed him they could no longer represent him. A question hung in the air. Was this exposure just the beginning of something much bigger? And what exactly did that Ferrari bring that would make Camila's victory transcend from personal justice to systemic revolution that would rewrite the rules of power, privilege, and prejudice, not just in a hotel but in every industry that for decades silenced voices like hers? 6 months later, Camila was in her new office at the Grand Riverside Hotel, Morrison's old space, completely redesigned. Sign at the entrance, Department of Diversity, Equity and Inclusion. Director, Camila Santos. Director, not manager. Authority to veto HR decisions. Direct access to the board. Substantial budget for real change. 17 former employees were compensated and offered rehire with retroactive salaries. 12 accepted. The other 5 used the money for their own ventures, financed by a fund David created specifically for victims of corporate discrimination. Morrison? Completely destroyed. Last time Camila heard, she managed a roadside motel. The wife filed for divorce, taking half of the assets. No hotel would hire him. His reputation was too toxic. Vanessa lost much more than money. David initiated a divorce 2 weeks after the press conference. Friends stopped answering calls. Charitable events lost sponsors. Instagram disabled. Comments exposing hypocrisy were relentless. The real change was not individual declines. It was systemic. Grand Riverside has implemented revolutionary protocols, employee committees with real power, quarterly equity audits, 6-month training with real consequences for anyone who didn't take it seriously. 3 other luxury hotels contacted Camila for consultancy. She accepted on condition, full access to the files and authority to expose discrimination found. The industry was changing, slowly, but changing. David proved to be a genuine ally, included Camila in strategic decisions, often asking her perspective before significant changes. "You saved this place," he said at the board meeting. "Not just my son, the entire hotel, my integrity." The Ferrari promised in the title arrived 3 months later. Not literally. David presented comfortable sedan, fully paid for, insured for 3 years, and simple letter. "To the woman who taught me that true luxury is not what you drive, but the dignity with which you move through the world." Camila sold her car a week later. She lived close to work, and used the money for an emergency fund for vulnerable employees. Another 30,000 of their own completed the initial 100,000. Julia, now a junior lawyer in Helena's office, visited weekly, showing articles about Camila in business magazines. "Do you realize you're like an icon now?" Laugh. Lectures. Universities wanting you. Camila accepted the lectures selectively. Each story shared was another person understanding that resistance was not only possible, but necessary. Morrison tried his last desperate act, defamation lawsuit against Camila, Helena, and David. Rejected at preliminary hearing. Judge was particularly harsh. "Prosecuting people for exposing your own documented conduct isn't defamation, Mr. Morrison. It's consequences." The last time Camila saw Morrison was in a supermarket, buying generic brands, unkempt appearance. Eyes met briefly. He turned away, embarrassed. Camila didn't feel satisfied. Apenas tranquila certeza de que justiça havia sido servida. That night, in a larger but still modest apartment, he looked out the window at the illuminated city, thinking about how 1 year changed everything. A year ago, unemployed, blacklisted, fraudulently prosecuted, eating instant noodles. Today, director of a prestigious hotel, sought-after consultant, respected voice on corporate equity. But true victory was not title or salary. It was an email received from a young employee. "Ms. Santos, thank you for being here. For the first time in 3 years, I feel like someone really sees us." It was knowing that Brenda, Marcus, Sophia, and 14 others finally had stories validated, pain recognized, dignity restored. It was a call from David saying that Benjamin, almost 2 years old, had taken his first steps, and that he insisted that his son knew the name of the woman who saved him, and what she represented about courage and integrity. Morrison lost his job, his reputation, his marriage, his future. Vanessa lost social status, credibility, respect, even from people who shared her privileges. Camila gained something money can't buy, proof that a black former hotel waitress, unemployed, blacklisted woman could not only survive the system designed to destroy her, but fundamentally transform it from within. The Ferrari that actually appeared was not a luxury vehicle. It was the key to opening doors that had been locked for generations. It was the power to transform not just a life, but an entire system. It was proof that when you refuse to remain invisible, when you document every injustice meticulously, when you wait for the perfect moment with strategic patience, revenge is not just sweet, it is revolutionary. Morrison tried to destroy Camila, but ended up destroying himself. She learned that true revenge is not about repaying damage suffered. It is about achieving success that enemies could never imagine. Building on the ashes of injustice, a future where no one will ever have to choose between heroism and survival. And you? What would you do if you saved a life and were punished for it? Leave a comment in the comments if you have faced similar injustice. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that the best revenge is success, and that invisible people, when they decide to be seen, rewrite not only their own stories, but transform entire systems that they believed to be invincible.